Thank you, Julia, for that story about your names. That was really interesting. So I'm just going to read well, this started off as a poem, and I think I've repurposed it, and it's more of I don't know, I'm just going to read it. And it's about coffee. So, every morning when I drink my jumbo-sized cup of American coffee, I am nostalgically reminded of those mornings in Ethiopia as a child and a teen during the summers when we would visit Addis Ababa from our home in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We would wake up to the smell of my grandmother roasting bun in the other room. And after waking, we'd all gather with her in the living room, saying our good mornings as we sat down on the carpeted floor, preparing to eat breakfast while she began the coffee-making process. I would watch her, how she would set up the little coffee table and set, the cups, saucers, spoons, milk, water pitchers, jabana or clay coffee pot, matches for burning incense, and rose petals, freshly plucked from her garden to decorate. Once all set up, my grandmother's hands would deftly deal with the coffee beans, still raw and green, and cast them into the small metal roasting pot over her little coal stove. As we gathered around, sitting with gabis draped on our shoulders for warmth, watching the incense burn and allowing the aromas to start settling in. The soft rattling sound of coffee beans would hit the metal as they roasted, and it was soothing, almost like when it rains. And the smells, the intermingling aromas of incense, popcorn, and slowly roasting coffee beans and freshly baked hambasha bread, how they would pervade every corner of the room and fill your lungs with a sense of completeness. After roasting the beans, Amaye would set it on a straw plate called a safed and pass the coffee grounds around, and we would each take turns sniffing the fumes while waving the smoke toward our faces. That was always the best part. Then she would grind the beans into a fine powder using a little grinding machine, ready to mix with boiling hot water in the jabana, the clay pot that I mentioned earlier. Carefully, she'd pour the coffee grounds in, and then carefully pour the water. And then she would sit the jabana on the stove at a particular angle so that its rounded bottom wouldn't fall. And then we would wait until it brewed, slowly, deliberately. Multitasking between exchanging plates of popcorn and bread and stories, while keeping our eyes on the pot so that the bunna wouldn't overflow when it boiled. We would wait what seemed like forever, but the time would pass as we enjoyed each other's company and the warmth of the smells and the smoke. Ah, the smoke. There it is, emerging from the stem of the coffee pot like a chimney shooting ash clouds. You can just see the coffee starting to froth, almost ready to peep over the spout. And that's when you would know it's time to quickly take it off the stove. Then, during this process, I remember fondly how Amaye would take the time to make dua, or prayers, in the language of her Eritrean mother's Tigrinya, intermingled with Arabic words like Alhamdulillah and Insha'Allah. She would make dua for me and my sisters and our mom. Allah yitabbak achu, Allah hidayah yistachu, Allah yasaddigachu, hullum nagar khair yistachu, barahmanna bafikr, salam yistachu. Roughly translates as, may Allah protect you, may Allah give you guidance, may Allah raise you, may Allah put good in your path, and may He put abundance in this life and the next, and may He give you all peace and harmony. And then we would recite Surah Al-Fatiha, or the opening chapter of the Quran, with her and wipe our faces down in remembrance with an Ameen and take turns to kiss her cheeks and her hands. After all of that, the moment finally arrives. It's time for coffee. Grandma pours the coffee from the jabana carefully into small cups, intentionally not stopping the pouring process as if it were a train, so as to spill the coffee onto the tray in between the cups. It's a skill in and of itself, an art, as my mom likes to tell me. Amaye would then put milk and sugar for those who wanted it, and then we would pass down the little saucers and the small porcelain cups of coffee filled to the brim, paired with a tiny golden spoon each, and we would stir the sugar, and we were more than ready to taste the delicious brew that had been simmering for the last hour. Silence fills the room as we all take our first slow, deliberate sips together. And then shouts of "Dambun, dambun!" and chatter starts to fill the room as everyone takes turns complimenting Grandma on her delicious bunna and her excellent coffee-making skills. Usually people will have seconds or thirds as cultural respect, and if you're a real addict, fourths. But mostly the coffee was about the company, the conversation, and the laughter. You see, in Eritrean and Ethiopian cultures, coffee is more than just coffee. Coffee is about ceremony. It's about family, warmth, bonding, and love. It's also a sort of rite of passage to show that if you can master the coffee ceremony, then you're a grown woman. It's also a privilege. Usually elder women are asked to make the coffee, and that's the power of the concept of the matriarch in my culture. What I miss most was that coffee was slow time. It was about we time, and it was about grandma time. It's when she's happiest. Coffee is also about prayers to God of better days and blessings. It's about hospitality, of invitations, about guests and neighbors. It's about welcomes and hellos and pleadings of, please stay longer. Coffee represents the heart of our cultures, the beauty of our communities, and our culturally ingrained beliefs in abundance, sharing, and generosity. So every time I drink my jumbo-sized cup of American coffee during my rushed morning commute to work, I pause and think about how the same thing can represent an opposite lifestyle and belief system in a cultural world away. Here, coffee is associated with productivity and work, with Starbucks and capitalism. Back home, coffee is about family and comfort, taking it easy, unwinding. It's about indigenous tradition and stories and being with the people you love. And for me personally, coffee is about my grandma, and of drinking bun with her during our summers in Ethiopia as a child all those years ago. Thank you.